Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Goat Talk. We're going to get right into it right over here.
What's up? How are you?
Spurs,
Who is this?
We have a producer. Who do we
Gone.
have?
Bye.
Gone.
Bye, Mr. Producer.
Bye,
We
Mr.
don't need you
Producer.
in here with us today.
This is the newest edition of the Goat Talk. Thank you guys for joining us today. We are going to do a different version of Goat Talk, with last episode being the greatest QBs to never
win a ring.
Never win a ring. And it was quite an interesting conversation. Wouldn't you say so, Spurge?
I would, and this is what makes Goat Talk so interesting. You know, it's who is the greatest of all time is what it is. So it's a very objective type of show, because Derek, I had said in the first show we would probably agree on 3 out of the 4, but we only agreed on 2.
That's right.
Well, actually, we agreed on 3, but our order
we agreed on 3, but the order was
right.
was flip-flopped. Yeah.
Now this one, we're both huge wrestling fans. So this show is going to be a lot different for most people. And I'll start it off with TNA. Now, TNA has been around for a while. It has changed some names and all of that. You know, it was TNA, and then it went to Impact, and then it went to then it went back to TNA, and then it went to TNA Impact and all of that stuff, right? So we're just going to go through that whole thing. It was started back when WCW was bought out in 2001 by Vincent McMahon, the WWE. He did not bring Jeff Jarrett on board. So with the help of Dixie Carter, Jeff Jarrett started TNA. And at the time, he was using the NWA Championship belt.
Mm-hmm. That's
now,
correct.
So this is called the Goat Talk of the greatest people from that organization. And when I think of TNA, there's one guy that I think of over everybody. And he is now a current WWE superstar, the one and the only, the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, is who, when I think of TNA, is him. Now, there's another guy who I would put at 1B, and that is Eric Young, because he is still. So the GOAT, let's set the parameters, Derek. The GOAT Talk is guys who've never really jumped ship and spent the majority of their career in that organization, right?
Correct. Yes,
that's how we're going to say it. Okay.
So for me, this particular show.
For this particular show. So for me, the only reason why I say AJ is because that's what I think of. But the actual GOAT for TNA is Eric Young, because he's the only guy who has been there the majority of his career. Spent a cup of coffee, I think, a couple years in WWE.
Yeah.
And he is now
back through NXT and WWE.
TNA. Yeah. So for me, when it comes to TNA, it's Eric Young, hands down.
Well, for me, I don't disagree. And that's probably the direction I would go, is going to be Eric Young. But I would also kind of point towards, obviously you made a point of AJ, and we're trying to keep it within the parameters of guys or gals that haven't jumped ship and gone to a competing company to fight against their original company, or the company that they made their bones in, so to speak. I come to names, and I will think throughout the annals of TNA, and you say, well, Jeff Jarrett. Well, Jeff Jarrett was a WWF guy, and then he was a WCW guy. Before he was ever WWF, he was in other territorial areas throughout those regions. So I would say AJ won, and then here's what's going to surprise you. I would agree with you on Eric Young because of his longevity.
Right.
But I also come to another name. Okay. And the other name is one half of the Motor City Machine Guns, and that's Alex Shelley.
Ooh. Well, hell, let's just do 4 guys then.
Right. Let's go ahead and do it. We're already there.
It's just the go talk. I would have to agree with you because, again, I'm going to put
because we could do this like Mount Rushmore, right? We could just do
I'm
the
going to
4
put
in
Saban
each.
in with Alex Shelley.
That's exactly where I was going to go next. Was Nick Saban?
Yeah, I would put the two of them together because
That
they were
X division. That X
yes,
division.
the X division. Yeah, I would put them at number 2. I would put the Mortimer City Machine Guns at the number 2 for TNA wrestling. That's just my opinion.
They were there and they did the whole thing and they
From the
stayed for
beginning.
the duration, or at least as long as they could. I mean,
Mhm.
let's face it, after the Hogan Bischoff debacle area where Dixie Carter brought those bozos in to
Right.
basically destroy that company. So, I think that's a very competitive list for what TNA is. And let's be real, TNA never really either held on to the stars that they grew and or brought in other stars that were either already developed from another company and had name, had lineage, had a history. That's why TNA is where it's at and how we rank it the way that we do.
Right. Well, I mean, if you really look at what TNA did, TNA brought us a lot of people that we've never seen before. The guys like AJ Styles.
Samoa Joe was in a Ring of Honor, but he made his bones in TNA.
He did. I mean, look, it's crazy to say what TNA did because TNA was after 01. Why did you do that? Oh, there we go.
I didn't mean to do that.
Nobody really knew about TNA. And then it just kind of grew and started growing and growing and growing and getting bigger. And it was because of things like the X Division and stuff like that. Let's see. My last guy. Ooh. Man, I'm trying to think of who I would. I'd have to put Jeff Jarrett on there. For the simple fact that he is the founder of the company.
Well, you could put him as like the Vince McMahon. Like you could have the 4 guys, and then you could have the guy over the top.
The 4 guys. So like the 4 pillars.
Like the 4 pillar guys that ran that company and did more for that company to build that company. Again, you have a hard time picking anybody else. I know people are going to argue Samoa Joe. People are going to argue AJ and the things they did with that company. But I can argue a dozen other wrestlers as well. But if you count the longevity within that organization and what they managed to do there, then I think these are pretty good picks.
No, actually, I'll take Jeff Jarrett off. I'm going to put Moose because Moose has had the opportunity to leave. He is the current TNA heavyweight champion. Moose has had the opportunity to leave to go on to bigger and better things, and he hasn't. He's stayed. He's been there and has made a name for himself in TNA. So I would put Moose as my number 4 for the greatest of all time in TNA wrestling. That's what I would do.
All right. I'm still going to stick with the Motor City Machine Guns, and I think that's a fair pick. So I think we're in agreement of basically the first 3, and then we just kind of delineate on the last one. So that's pretty good. All right. So since you started off with TNA, I'm going to go ahead and jump in, and we're going to go ahead and just address the 800-pound gorilla in the room. That's ECW.
Oh,
ECW. This is by far going to be one of the hardest things that we're going to be able to pick on and probably even disagree.
Should we have it as last then? Because
and here's the reason why I say no.
Okay.
Because of the length of time that ECW was in existence. And remember, they were a spinoff from the NWA, which is a territorial system. It's not an organization.
Yeah, they started
conglomeration of territories.
Yeah, so, they started in 94.
That's why NWA is not classified under this particular list, is because it was a conglomeration of territories, a lot like the AWA, that banded together to create one entity, but they all operated separately within their own markets. Not like ECW, not like TNA, AEW, WWE, WWF, and WCW. So
Right.
I'm good with keeping ECW here because of their 6-7 years of existence that they only existed in, as to where WCW operated within a very, very long time period. And I understand that
It's true.
AEW is only operated for a handful of years, but AEW has almost operated just as long as ECW at this point, because
Mhm.
when was the All In original event? That was back in what, 2021,
No,
2020?
I was at that. It was 2019, so it was right before
Right
COVID.
before, it was right before the pandemic had
Mhm.
started. And
I mean,
that was quite a big deal, because they had the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion there in Nick Aldis that
yep.
faced off against Cody Rhodes, where
Mhm.
Cody Rhodes knocked off Nick Aldis for the NWA World Heavyweight
Mhm.
Championship and started to cement his legacy into what we know now as the American Nightmare.
Correct.
And so that's the direction we're going to go with it. So I think that, ECW, then we could probably move on to like AEW
Okay.
or whatever.
All right. Okay.
So
Okay.
ECW. Here's
Oh.
going to be my number one pick.
No, let's go number 4. We'll work our way up.
We'll go from the bottom, go up.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's go
let's
from
go
the
from the
bottom
bottom.
up.
Let's go up.
Yeah.
I would have to say, again, because there wasn't a ton of just marquee guys and gals,
Right.
right? But I'm going to say my number 4, and this is probably going to shock you, but I'm going to say Francine.
Ooh.
Francine at number 4. There you go.
Ooh. Ooh, good. Well, I'm really gonna shock you. My number 4 would be the 2300 Arena,
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
because that building is so synonymous
The
with
Philadelphia, yeah.
ECW still to this day. I mean,
Which the newest NWA event, NWA
is in
76, is going to be emanating from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia.
correct. So I know it's not a person, but just every show they did was from that building. I mean, when I
Kind of
remember,
like Madison Square Garden with WWE.
yeah, the majority of their shows were from that building.
Right.
That building is the building where New Jack threw a guy off the top into the scaffolding onto all the tables and tried to kill the man because the man had dropped him on his head a few years ago.
Yep.
Just the history. You have the incident with New Jack where he
Mass
gigged a kid
transit.
too much,
Yep.
you know. So the building itself, and you've listened to Bully Ray and Tommy Dreamer and Taz and Paul Heyman talk about the 2300 Arena as a person, as in itself, with the blood and the sweat and the alcohol and the smoke, all of that, So my number 4 is the 2300 Arena.
Okay. Well, then let's just move right on to number 3. And
Okay.
I might surprise you on this. Maybe I might, maybe I might not.
Okay.
But I am going to go with, and this is tough for me because I've got them in my head and I keep kind of like doing this with them, right?
Right.
Going back and forth, because
Uh-huh.
there are some names that you look at and go, that's synonymous with ECW, but where do I
Yes.
put them? Do I put them at number 2? Do I put them at number 3 or number 1? Or,
Right.
how do I, because they're so close, because there were so many guys that came in, went out, and
Mhm.
gals that came in and went out. And
Yes.
so I would probably have to say at number 3, my choice is going to be the suplex machine, Taz.
That is a very good choice, because if you think about it, Taz made a name for himself in ECW before he moved on to
And then
WWE.
WWF ruined him. Just
Right. Well,
absolutely
he didn't really have a
ruined
run.
just
I
destroyed it.
mean, Taz had some of the greatest matches in the world in his career in ECW with Sabu, and with Bam Bam Bigelow and all of that stuff.
Didn't Taz drop Sabu on his head in one match, or was that somebody else that I seem to remember?
No, that was Sabu. They legitimately hated each other.
Yeah, that's what I seem to remember, because I remember RVD and Sabu had some bangers.
Yes. Oh
They
my
really
God.
did. They had
Yeah.
some absolute just teardowns.
That is a very good one. That's very good with Taz. But man, mm,
It makes it tough, doesn't it? Now that you think about it and you've got them rolling around in your head, you're like, it's like, I think we both know where we're going to go with number one on this for the most
ooh,
part, but
you know,
it's really tough. It's really tight. It's hard.
here's why I'm going to put. You know what? I'm going to agree with you with Taz for number 3.
Okay.
I'm going to agree with you with Taz for number 3 because he was going to be my number 2. But as I start thinking of it, I'm like, nope, because Taz did jump ship,
Mm-hmm.
right? Taz did jump ship.
He did.
So I'm like, yeah, I will put Taz at number 3.
That's why I put him down.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have put him at 4, but because of the impact that I was almost said Daphne there, but Francine had
Yes.
in the business at that time. I mean, she was about as hot as Sunny was at one point in
She
time.
was.
Yeah,
She
and so
was.
she was a big deal for ECW back in that time. So
See,
you're
now,
going with number 3. Who are you
I'm
going
agreeing
with?
with you, Taz. Now I'm going to give
Taz
you a
number
number
3.
2. Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead.
He started with the company in 1989. There was only 2 people in ECW that stayed with the company until the day the doors closed. My number 2 is an ECW champion. He was first a surfboarder, would come out in surfer shorts with a surfboard. When Shane Douglas dropped the belt in the trash and says, "This is effing WCW," they changed his whole gimmick to a kendo swinging, cigarette walking, beer slugging, slam it in his forehead. The one and the only Stanman is number 2
Doom,
for
doo, 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 doom.
ECW.
The Sandman, one of those classic characters that grace the screens, and everybody knows is synonymous with those barbed wire tattoos that went up
Yes.
his arms, and the beer and the cigarettes and
Yep.
Metallica playing in the background for his entrance music.
Yep.
You know, he was over like Rover there for a cup of coffee there at ECW.
I think Sandman might have been, even as a heel, still might have been one of the most popular guys in ECW. And there you have your ECW's originals. He's one of them. He was the guy that got us started in ECW, you know, just like the Dudley Boys and all of that stuff. I mean, look, you could put the Dudley Boys on this list, but the Dudley Boys made more of a name for themselves in WWE and in TNA in New Japan. Sand made the majority of his name and his money in ECW. So for me, that's why he is number 2.
Okay. See, this is where it gets really hard for me.
Okay.
Because I've got 3 right now.
Ooh.
I've got 3 that I could pick from. And I struggled with this. I thought about this all afternoon, thinking about, man, where am I going to put these guys? Right? Because I'm also kind of trying to think impact, right? With the impact that they had on the business. And I almost don't disagree with you to even a point to where I would even say that, yes, Shane Douglas should be in that number 2 spot. But because of the shortness of duration, and that he was not that pinnacle character that you know, the guys, we talked about this before, the guys that would just get beat up, and they would just get red hot heat on the heel if they got beat up. So I'm going to go at number 2, and this is a tough one for me. I got to go Jerry Lynn.
Oh, man.
I got to go Jerry Lynn at number 2.
I never even thought about Jerry Lynn because of some of the matches that he had with Sabu, and
he had some amazing matches.
Well, with Eddie Guerrero before Eddie Guerrero moved on, and Low-Ki before Low-Ki moved on. Oh, wow.
And the longevity of his career all throughout. I mean,
yeah.
Shane Douglas, don't get me wrong. Shane Douglas he was that transitional guy, but that's how I view him.
Right.
I
Yeah.
view him as that transitional guy,
Mhm.
not the guy that elevated the product.
That is good. That is a good one. I could definitely didn't even think about Jerry Lynn.
Because
Didn't
Jerry
even
Lynn's
think
just,
about it.
it doesn't really pop out at you, right? There's
No.
names that pop out at you, and you go, absolutely, that guy there. And again, everybody's going to disagree with us on this.
Well, and I think the reason why
it's
you
what it
say
is.
no, why I didn't think of Jerry Lynn is because pretty much after ECW was done, he was pretty much done
Yeah, he was washed out. Yeah.
wrestling. Very good. Very good. I like that pick at number 2 for you. Well, here it is on Go Talk. We do the Mount Rushmore of the greatest of all time. This is the Go Talk, the greatest of all time. This is our wrestling edition from WWE/WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and TNA. We've already broken down TNA. We are breaking down ECW. I am one of your hosts, Spurge. Right there is the guy who helps host the show with me, the one and only
Derek King. That's it.
Now, number 1 for ECW. Everybody would think it would be Paul Heyman.
Right.
I get it. I get why you would think it would be Paul Heyman, but let's remember, Paul Heyman screwed those guys over in
He did.
2000, left to go to the WWE, and left one man in charge with the bank, everything, with all the bills. That when you talk about you wanted red hot heat for your heels, you would beat this guy up. You would smack this guy around. There's a reason why he is called the innovative of violence, the one and only Mr. Tommy Dreamer. I will never forget. He is the number 1 all-time greatest in ECW. Nobody is greater than Tommy Dreamer. Only held the belt for like 5 seconds. Was never their world champion. But yet, he was the biggest fan favorite of all. I will never forget when Sandman is sitting there caning him with the Singapore cane. And Tommy Dreamer looks back and says, "Yes, sir, may I have another?" And then, wham! "Quit, Dreamer, quit." "Yes, sir, may I have another?" Wham! "Yes, sir, may I have another?" And if you've ever been hit or even held a Singapore cane, those things pinch you.
Oh, they do. Real bad.
I mean, Tommy Dreamer is synonymous with ECW. Yeah. Hands down, next to Paul Heyman. But Heyman really wasn't the wrestler, and he made more money in WWE. But Tommy
and
Dreamer,
Heyman was a WCW guy, too.
That is true. He started in WCW.
Yeah.
That is true. So for me, my number 1's Tommy Dreamer, hands down. You can't otherwise change my opinion on that just because of what Tommy Dreamer was.
Do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. RVD would be an honorable mention. Sabu, the Dudley Boys would be honorable mentions.
For you.
Jerry Lynn would be an honorable mentions. I already said Taz. Raven would be an honorable mention for their, I mean, shit, Spike Dudley.
I would agree with all of those, but there's one particular one that I want to point out.
Okay.
That I don't think got the credit where credit was due during his time in WCW.
Well,
and
ECW?
Obviously, the ECW, I'm sorry, WCW, this individual did wrestle in that organization as well. But, you know, we talked about Shane Douglas. He would be an obvious honorable mention for me.
Right.
But I just don't put him on the list because he's transitional to me.
Yeah.
But I would have to say my main honorable mention will be Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah, you know, you were saying that, and I was like, shit, I forgot Whipwreck. I forgot Mikey.
Yeah.
New Jack is another one.
Right, New Jack. But here's the problem with New Jack. God rest his soul.
He was crazy.
He was insane. He was psychotic.
Crazy.
And the man was a known psychotic. I mean, the guy flat out said that he tried to kill guys in the ring.
Yes.
You know, they tried to charge him in that mass transit incident.
Yes.
There was we could go on, but we don't have the time.
Right. So, yeah, we're only doing an hour today.
For me, my honorable mention would probably have to be, Shane Douglas, Mikey Whipwreck,
Right.
RBD, those type of individuals. But obviously, at the top of the deck, it's the innovator of violence, Tommy Dreamer. He's the guy. He was there from the start. He was there till after the end.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that literally shut the doors on that place.
Mm-hmm.
And to Tommy, hats off.
He was the one that shut the door, locked it, turned the lights off at the 2300 arena for ECW. Now,
Spurge, take it away.
We are going. This is Goat Talk, the greatest of all time. We are breaking down the greatest wrestlers from the WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and TNA. And we will go to the newly formed company, AEW. Now, this is where it gets very, very interesting because AEW has already said who their 4 pillars are of wrestling. Okay? And I mean, I kind of agree with them on who their 4 pillars are. So I'm going to start with my number 4. Okay? My number 4 is Jack Perry, Jungle Boy Jack Perry.
Oh.
Are you kidding me? Jack Perry, the little smart aleck punk, doing his little thing, and then he has the little incident with CM Punk, and then he comes back better and bigger than ever. With the elites, with Okada, part of all of that, beats up Tony Khan. Yeah, Jack Perry, in my opinion, is the number 4 guy in AEW right now. In its short run.
I am just going to fundamentally disagree with you because of how much I can't stand that guy. I don't care if his daddy was famous. I don't care if he was a fan of what it is. I don't give a rat's behind. I'm going to try to keep it PG.
Right.
But I legitimately cannot stand that guy.
Oh, you're nuts. So, you're nuts.
For me, I've got to say, for me at number 4 right now, based off of what they've done and what they've brought to the table, I'm going to say, again, not longevity here, but I'm going to have to say Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay, number 4. Just because of what he brings to the table as a performer, and that he's not one of those guys that just stands out, screams out at you like, oh man, this is this, like Jack Perry does. Look at me, pay attention to me. I'm important. I'm a big deal. Will Ospreay just goes in there and gets the job done. And he puts on banger after banger, and he doesn't lose. He's 12-0 in his singles career.
I am not a spot match guy, but I will watch a Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega match any time of the day. That's going to be another one. A show of the greatest wrestlers not in the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. Okay, I like your Will Ospreay. I like it. I love Will Ospreay. I like it, but to me, when I'm thinking of the longevity of the GOAT show, right? I'm going back. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm saying as of right now. Okay? So my number 3, and he's out right now due to his wife having a baby. He is taking some time off. The Spanish God himself, Sammy Guevara. I love to hate him. I don't like when he comes on the screen, but damn it, when he gets in that ring and the stuff he does, I'm like, you're nuts, kid. You're nuts. Me, it's Sammy Guevara is my number 3 for the greatest of all time for AEW to this point.
To this point. Agreed.
Yep.
And I think that's a solid pick. I wouldn't disagree with Sammy Guevara at number 3. Solid pick. I would probably put him more to number 4, but I can understand why you put him at number 3. There's a lot of really excellent choices here, but I also think about the innovators that launched AEW into
Ooh.
existence and that
Ooh.
made AEW into what it is. And if it wasn't for those individuals, then AEW wouldn't be where it is. And so, therefore, that leads me to my number 3 pick. And my number 3 pick has to be Chris Jericho.
Ooh, see? You got me because I thought you were going a totally different direction, and I thought
Now
you were
you
going
thought,
with
and I teed it up that way.
You did.
I teed it up that way,
I thought
but
you were going to say
that's
Young Bucks.
nope.
Ooh,
And it's
Jericho.
just because um, there's a place for the Young Bucks, and it's just not in this spot.
Ooh. I have another spot for Jericho.
Okay.
But I get where you're coming from.
But this is going to be your pick, your position. So go ahead and let me have it. What do you think?
What, with Jericho?
No, I mean for your next pick.
Oh, my
what
next
do you
pick,
think?
my number 2 pick.
Your number 2 pick.
Up until this point, I'm looking at the future. Okay? I'm looking
You're looking at the future. I'm looking at what they built themselves into.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying is I'm looking at the future of AEW, and I'm looking at where these guys where they could have jumped ship and not came to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the madman, the daredevil himself, the man that just climbed Mount Everest. I think he might be one of the only wrestlers in the world to attempt to climb Mount Everest. The Mr. Coffin Drop himself, Darby Allin. The human crash test dummy.
I could see by your statement going forward and looking at the future.
Yeah.
So I will give you that one. I will even go and I will say my number 2 right now. I'm not even going to waste any time.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Because I think my number 1 is going to shock you.
Oh, maybe.
I think my number 1 is going to shock you, but my number 2, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes.
How? He's in WWE now.
But it doesn't matter. He invented AEW. He built AEW into what it was, and then was unceremoniously ran out of the organization by the EVPs.
I get it, but then
all
why
the
did
other
you
BS.
put the EVPs in there then?
But I'm looking at what made AEW what it is today.
Okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. I'm not a Cody Rhodes fan anyways.
Oh, I am. And I'm going to tell you right now, if it was not for Cody Rhodes' vision, this would not exist.
Well, that is true. And my fiance, we all know my fiance, Amanda, she loves Cody Rhodes. I've never liked him, never liked his lisp.
Whoa!
All that dumb.
Okay, so now it gets down to brass tacks. Number one.
I'll let you go because there's only one person.
You're gonna let me go?
Yes, there's only one person in AEW.
Oh, and we know who that is. Are you ready? Let's say it at the same time. Are you ready? It's the man in the biz right now that everybody's talking about. He's the man that just returned. He is the man, the myth, the legend, MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman.
And I'm better than you, and you know it.
Know it.
That's Listen, right. When you talk of the future of wrestling, okay? MJF is the future of wrestling.
This guy's it. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that can get heat faster than anybody without even trying. The guy that can get a crowd to boo him, cheer him, whatever he wants. He's got him right here. Yeah. He's got them right here. He knows how to work them. He knows how to move them. He knows how to shake them. He knows everything about it, and he could turn it up to 11, or he could bring it all the way down to the floor. He's that good.
He's that good. He reminds me of a mix between Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, The Miz, when you want a professional wrestler,
when you're in CAW, right? In No
Yes.
Mercy, we all remember that. If you're in
yes,
CAW, you're a creative wrestler, and you want to create the greatest wrestler ever, the best one. MJF is at
I
the top of
mean,
that list.
it's a guy that's I've never seen anybody get more nuclear heat in a match, but at the same time get praised.
He's the
In a
sole
match.
reason why I tune into AEW
The
product.
only reason I tune into
He is the only reason why I tune into AEW product. With his return this last week,
Double or Nothing.
he came back. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
It was 2 weeks ago. Double or Nothing in Vegas.
Yeah,
when he came out against
days are
Adam
all bleeding
Cole.
together at this point, and he came out in that Triple H-esque blue jean and leather, and I mean, just jacked to the hilt. I think he had abs up to his Adam's apple.
Yes,
I mean, he was ripped.
I mean,
so easy pick. Easy pick.
I mean, MJF hands down.
Is there an honorable mention? And we'll just put it to one. We'll put it to one.
Okay, we'll put it to one. For my honorable mention would be Kenny Omega.
I agree.
Kenny Omega would definitely. I mean, I love Omega. I got the cleaner shirts, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I've turned a lot of people onto Omega. I mean, Omega is just possibly one of the best wrestlers outside of the WWE.
Even though I don't care for his personality and the way that he is personally, his performances within the ring speak for themselves.
Oh yeah, hands down. Hands down.
Okay, well then we've already done TNA, we've done AEW, we've done ECW. Now we're going to be moving on to the WCW, where the big boys play. So now, did I start off this last one with the pick?
No, I started it off.
You started it off. I'll start off in WCW with the very first pick. Man, this is
number
so
4?
hard. My number 4. My first pick at number 4, I'm going to go with Booker T.
Ooh, good one. Good one. Ooh, man. I didn't even think of Booker T.
He's that one that just flies under the radar. He was so good with Harlem Heat, and they won multiple tag titles.
5 times.
He was always in the U.S. title hunt. He was the five-time WCW champion, baby.
Wow. You got me on that one.
So number 5, Booker T. And
your
the
number
reason
4.
that I put him 5 times the WCW champion at number 4, but the reason that I put him at number 4 is because he didn't really come into his own to the back end of the history of WCW, not by his fault, but just because of the structure of the company and the way things were at the time.
Right. And see, and that's why with me, when I watched Booker T, I saw a Rock ripoff. But now that I look at it, man, shite.
I mean, if you really think about it, the scissors kick, the Harlem leg drop, you know, what he did off the top rope where he flipped over.
Damn, man.
You know, all these, he did the bookend. I get it. But guess what? That Rock stole that from other wrestlers.
That's true. See, because I was going to put Ron Simmons as my number 4.
I debated on Ron, but I'm just going to go and check that box right now to where
I'm going to stick to it. Right, I'm going to stick to Ron Simmons, and here's the reason why I'm going to stick to Ron Simmons.
Okay.
For number 4, and this has a lot to do with Dusty Rhodes, and everybody that knows me and we've talked to me knows I'm not a Dusty Rhodes fan. I think Dusty Rhodes.
What you talking about, baby?
What are you talking about, baby?
What you talking
about? Let me tell you something, baby. We got to give it to Ron Simmons.
If you knew what the American dream Dusty Rhodes has been through. I was filling seats back when you were in diapers, baby.
WCW.
Let me tell you something, Daddy.
Be the first organization to ever give an African American a world heavyweight championship.
Because how long did the WWE hold off on that?
Took forever until they gave it to The Rock.
Yep.
But for me, the reason why I would say Ron Simmons, and I know that he made his name with in WWE as Farouk, Nation of Domination, but you go and watch Ron Simmons' work in WCW with Doom and stuff, and he, multiple tag team champions, first ever black heavyweight champion of the world, beat Big Van Vader. Ron Simmons was, there's a lot of great black wrestlers, but Ron Simmons was a way above his time. And
he was in it when it was still what it,
he was in it when it was still ran by the good old white boys.
It was a bad situation. And
yes.
For him to, it's like Jackie Robinson in baseball.
Yes. And for him to even get the title shot and to win the title and to carry that company, that means that WCW had a lot of faith in Ron Simmons. So that is my number.
You don't know what I got to say about that?
What?
Damn.
All right. So my number 3. There's just so many guys.
So many. I know it's hard. It's really difficult. That's why I put Ron as my honorable mention, because
I get it.
Ron was, like with what you mentioned, the very first African-American champion in a history of wrestling, I believe at the time, because JYD is as hot as he was in the territories. He never even was allowed to get to that level.
No. All right. I have my number 4. I have my number 3.
Let's have it.
It was a man that started wrestling at the age of 35. You feel the bang, Mr. DDP, even though he had a little bit of a run in WWE, but where did he start his career? He started it in WCW. He was there to the end with WCW before he, and then he had to jump ship. So yeah,
we always remember that entrance. We always remember that Nirvana entrance.
And I hated it. I hated it. Bang! I hated it because he teamed up with Karl Malone. I hated Karl Malone because of Dennis Rodman and the Bulls.
Oh man!
But he teamed up with Jay Leno, and I hated Jay Leno. I loved David Letterman. I loved Letterman better than Leno. DDP, I have to put him at number 3 just because of what he did for WCW.
In the short period of time.
Exactly.
Because that was a very, very short window. We're talking like 3 years.
Man, we only got 3 minutes left for this one.
Yeah. We got to cut it in. So we got
to.
So mine, and this is number 3. This is where it gets tough. I've got to say Goldberg, number 3.
I can see that.
Goldberg.
See that. Okay.
So what's your number 2?
Oh, man, here it is again. Another hard one that you have to do with this. But yeah, listen, you're going to make fun of me. You're going to make fun of me. It's not obvious. Okay. It's not obvious because you're going to make fun of me. Because he never even got to go to any other promotion. He only stayed in WCW. Right? Mr. Marcus Buff Bagwell. Oof. I know it stinks. Well,
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one. So that just leads me to my number 2.
Where did he go? Where else did he go? Nowhere. So I'm going.
He went to was it called Gigolo Work? So
no, that's true.
That is true. So my number 2,
is
the 16-time world heavyweight champion, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
I get it. But for me, Rick is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time across all promotions.
But for WCW,
I get it. Well, then you can put Art Anderson over Rick and all of that.
You could, but the fact is, Arn was the brain busters over in WWF.
That is true with Tully Blanchard.
He went back and forth. So, Ric Flair.
Okay, I get it.
Number 1.
I'm not gonna
what do you got?
Make an argument. I think we got 15 seconds left for this segment. I think we both can agree who the number 1 is for WCW. He is the franchise. He is the team player. He is the one and the only, the icon, Sting. Number 1, greatest WCW
the Stinger
guy of all time. Best ever.
Hands down. All right. Let's transition into
the WWF
WWE, but this is GOAT Talk, and we are talking about some of the greatest of all time. And in this particular episode, we're talking about the greatest wrestlers for the WWF, WWE, WCW, ECW, AEW, and TNA. So
It's funny
I
that
will
we
start
spend
off.
right. It's funny that we put a lot of time on TNA. Just tell everybody about
I
that.
think it's because of the reasoning.
Right, yeah. I think so.
Because of the bigger companies that have been in existence, we already know their lineage. We've seen it. We've experienced
Right.
it. With these smaller companies that didn't last very long, we needed more explanation as to
And
why.
I like how we just kind of blew over AEW and WCW.
Well, WCW, was what it was. They're going to have that new special coming out, The Death
That
of
is true.
WCW. So make sure you check in.
All
on
right, so
that.
let's go to the WWE/WWF. I'll start here, number 4. As I sit here and I look at this, and I'm like, man, I mean, of course, the obvious is Hulk Hogan, but we're talking about their run within the company, right?
Right.
My number 4 is HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, number 4, Mr. WrestleMania.
Never worked for another company.
Never worked. Well, he did AWA, but once he came to left AWA and came to WWF.
Once he made his name as Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid.
Right, stayed.
He stayed.
Could have jumped ship and stayed, right?
And Marty Jannetty as the Rockers. They were in AWA. Then he came over, yes.
Right, yeah. Could have jumped ship, but he stayed with WWE or WWF at the time. I mean, Shawn Michaels, one of the greatest performers of all time. Had 2 of the greatest WrestleMania matches ever against The Undertaker. Just the stuff that he could do in the ring, the way he could get you. Another guy like MJF, you would hate him, but at the same time, you would cheer him.
Do you remember in 2004, I think it was, 2005, and he did that Montreal promo in Montreal?
Yes.
And he said, "Who's your daddy, Montreal?" Yes. And then they played Bret Hart's music for the pop. And then he's like,
right. Yeah. Shawn Michaels for me is number 4.
I will have to agree because there's other people that are in the company that I would put above Michaels and say this is where it gets really, really tough is having those 4 in WWF, WWE that you would look at and go, there you go. So I would agree. Number 4.
Yeah.
So number 3, I'll pick
up.
And this is where, again, it gets really, really difficult because you're looking at some of these guys and gals too. And you're going, wow, man, who do I pick from? There's so many with longevity, had success, changed the business. I have to go at number 3, John Cena at number 3.
John who?
John Cena. Do you ever watch that? Do you ever watch that promo with Santino Marella?
I do. I did.
You son of a gun.
You son of a gun. I get it with him. I get it.
It was just because they missed the boat turning him heel, and he got not good heat. He got bad heat there for a few years, and it was not good heat. And the fans started to really turn on him, and that's where I have a difficulty. Yeah, the kids loved him. He sold a ton of merch. I get it. All right. But I would have to put him in at number 3.
Okay. I get it, but I'm going to have to disagree with you.
Okay.
And it's only one guy. And then I'm going to go back to the WWF time
I think I know where you're going with this one.
A guy that never left, Vincent Sr. The man who's had the longest title reign by days, longest title reign of any other champion, held the belt for 8 straight years. It's the one, it's the only, the greatest WWE champion of all time, Bruno Sammartino.
And that is your number
That's my number 3 because wait
your
till you hear who my number
3
is Bruno, because you're talking about
Bruno.
a guy who sold out Madison Square Garden time after time after time again. There was no other wrestler that sold out Madison Square Garden like Bruno Sammartino.
But also longevity and staying at the top as long as he did.
He started in 1959, won the title in 63, held it to 81. 81
that was
71. My bad. 71.
That was his one championship run. He had a second that was almost as long.
From 72 to 77. I mean, Bruno never left.
And remember, he dropped that to the superstar Billy Graham.
Correct.
Which in turn was taken off of him. I believe, wasn't it taken off of him, off of Billy Graham by Pedro Morales, or was it the other way around? It was somebody else.
No, it was Pedro. It was
Pedro Morales. And then somebody took it off of Pedro, and I remember they had riots. It was a big old deal back then. Because there was a big Puerto Rican, influence there in New York at the time.
Number 3 is Bruno Sammartino. You have to put him on there. Okay. So now
number 2.
I'm going to go to my number 2 since you just went right back to forth. So we'll do it like the snake. My number 2 is your number 3, John Cena. Because the guy never left. In my opinion,
that's why
John Cena is the all-time record holder for world championships. And here's the reason why. Because he held it all in one company.
Mm-hmm.
Where Ric Flair held different heavyweight championships.
NWA, WCW, WWF.
Yep.
Then WCW again.
Yep. Now, Ric Flair, of course, he is the 16-time champion. But for Cena, Cena held all 16 of his title reigns in one company. And other than outside of what John Cena does with the Make-A-Wish, with the being the largest guy to ever do with that many Make-A-Wishes, for me, that's what makes John Cena the number 2 greatest wrestler in the WWE or WWF, because we will never see another guy like him in this.
I agree, and to a certain extent. And this is why I held these top 2.
Okay.
Because my number 2 is your number 3.
Oh,
Bruno Sammartino. And we don't have to explain it anymore. We already kind of talked about it, but that is my number 2, is Bruno.
Right, yeah. And the reason why Hogan's not on this, because Hogan had a great run in WWE and a great run in WCW.
Bounced to WCW, had a little short run as the, vitamin taking, red and yellow American, hero. And then obviously the NWO turn, everything that went with that.
Now, you want to talk about greatest wrestlers of all time? Of course, Hogan's on that list.
But I mean, let's not talk about wrestlers per se, because again, this is where it gets into sticky territory.
That's true.
Greatest performers, greatest entertainers, or greatest ring general type of wrestlers that actually could chain wrestle.
Well, hey, we're going to have time. So, I mean, let's get to it. Who number 1, I think we can both agree on it. There is only one guy that is synonymous with WWE. One guy, how he changed his character. He went from a dead man who didn't talk to a dude who was riding a motorcycle as an American badass. Changed that up to a man that was dead man ink going, dead man walking, and then came back as a hybrid. Hands down, the greatest WWE wrestler of all time is the one and only The Undertaker.
The Undertaker. And you remember those Teddy? You remember those Teddy promos when he was general manager over WCW, and he said, "You're gonna go 1-on-1 with The Undertaker."
Yeah,
and he would. Or he would say, there's going to be a tag match and it's going to have The Undertaker, and he was just always great about that. Remember way, way, way back in WCW, Teddy Long managed Mean Mark Callis back over in WCW whenever he was a member of the Twin Towers with, who was it? Who was the other guy?
It was Sid Vicious.
Was it Sid Vicious?
No, it wasn't. I can't think of the guy's name.
Was it Spivey?
It might have been. It might have been Spivey.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember the Twin Towers over in WCW. And Teddy Long was
so your number one is who?
The Undertaker.
Well, Derek, it's funny because we have 5 minutes left. So you know what we can do?
But here's what I would say.
Okay.
Who is the greatest performer, like big time, big level performer at the highest level, did it at the pay-per-views, did it at the highest level?
For me, it's Shawn Michaels.
It's Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels, right? Nobody in higher intensity matches that had better outcomes. Can you name me one bad Michaels match? Name me one. One. It's hard. Shit. It is probably one of the hardest things that you will do if you're talking about a performer, a guy that can move around the ring and he can do what he needs to do. Plus, he can entertain the hell out of you in the process of doing it. He could sell like nobody else.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do this.
Michaels.
We got 4 minutes left, so let's do the greatest wrestlers across all the boards.
Okay.
Okay. I'll run mine down for you real quick. Now, this is all across the boards. Number 4, okay? Number 4 to me is going to be Shawn. I will put Shawn Michaels again at number 4 because of the career that Michaels had, everything that Michaels did. My number 3 is the 16-time World Heavyweight Champion, the styling, profiling Ric Flair. My number 4, Hulk Hogan, because of what he did to the business and how he changed the business. And are you ready for my number 1?
That's at number 2. Hogan at number 2.
Hogan number 2. And my number 1, the only man in wrestling history to go for 15 years without ever being beat. The man that could not go anywhere because of his size. The man that was larger than life and was an attraction and drew money everywhere he went. He is the greatest wrestling performer of all time, Andre the Giant.
That is an excellent list.
That is my 4.
It's an excellent list. Now, we're talking about rounded here. We're talking about people that could wrestle, people that could perform on the stick, people that could do the whole thing, right?
Yep.
I am going to put at number 4, agreeance, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, at number 4. At number 3, I'm going to put the 16-time World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, who could dance with a mop and make it sing.
That is right.
He could make it sing, Big Daddy, all night long. And number 2, I am going to put Andre the Giant. I'm not even, and I'm gonna preface it by saying I'm not even putting Hogan on this list.
Oh, interesting. So you got Hogan, you got Andre at number 2.
At number 1, the one wrestler who definitively changed the business more than anybody in the history, sold more merch, was more white hot, more over, and single-handedly ended the Monday Night Wars. And when that glass breaks, you know who it is, and that is Stone Cold Steve
I can see
Austin.
That. I love it. I love it. I love the list. I love the list. Hey, this is GOAT Talk, the greatest of all time. This was our wrestling edition. You can find us on Roku.
Comment. What's your picks?
Right. Tell us what you guys' picks are.
Come on.
Find us on all of our social media. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. I am Spurge. Right there is my partner that does the show with me,
Derek King.
And we will see you guys